Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up sheets for our projects. So first we're going to start off with the cover sheet. All of these drawings should be saved in the template project folder, so you should have these when you create a new project. So the first thing I'm going to want to do when I open up the cover sheet drawing is XREF in the XR title block as well as the XR key map. This will show our typical border as well as give us the key map boundary that we have for our project. The next thing I'm going to want to do is go into the model space and XREF in the sheet notes drawing. The sheet notes drawing contains all of our agency approval blocks as well as typical sheet notes that we'll see on most of our drawings. So as you can see, the orange rectangles are viewports so that when we do bring in these XREFs, they auto-populate. Since we're just working in the city of Henderson for this project, I'll go ahead and delete the other viewports for the other agencies, and I'll move the city of Henderson viewport so that it's on our sheet. The utility and governing agencies list is actually a block that we can just click and then update based on the agency. For the project map here, the project site text and the hatched square can just be moved around so that it is site project specific. I'll move that later on. The next thing to add to the cover sheet is the sheet index, which is a function of our sheet set. So I'll import that using the sheet set command, and we have a PDG style, and I like to put that right next to the approval blocks and throw that on the Sienna layer. So the other thing that we're going to want to make sure that we update is the APN at the top of the cover sheet as well as the project name, which I've already gone ahead and done. Note that for projects that have final maps, the agencies will typically like to see that map tracking number. So I can always move the APN, make that smaller so that I can also show that tracking number on our cover sheet. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to want to do is get into the XR title block. Here I'll have a date right next to the stamp, and what I'll do is I'll tie this to the sheet set. So I'll edit this field so that it's tied to our sheet set plot date. That way when I update the sheet set, it updates the date right next to the engineer stamp. And I'll also make sure that the date is the correct month and year. Then I'll add the project name as well as the APN that we've already added, but we can either add the APN here or the address, but usually the address is not available at the start of these projects, so we'll just add the parcel information. The project number we can just pull from our project folder. The project numbers are just based on clients, so if we had another project with the community ambulance, that second project would be 1011.002 and so on. I've also tied the total sheets to our sheet set so that when I update our sheet set number, that also updates in the title block. The next thing that we're going to do is open up the XR key map drawing, as well as go to the PDG shares folders and go to the AutoCAD, GIS, and open up the parcels CAD drawing. What I've done is brought in all the parcel lines from Gizmo into CAD, and that line work is what I'm going to bring into our XR key map drawing. The reason why I do this is so that the image of Gizmo using those parcel lines that I would usually do, that allows it to be a lot cleaner. So right now I'm just making a rectangle for roughly about the right size of our key map. I'm doing a crossing to select all that line work. It's going to come in large. What I'll do is I'll select all of it and scale it down so that it can fit to our cyan block border. And I'll trim all the excess line work and parcels that we don't need. Once I've done that, I'll just align the corners with the cyan rectangle, and then I can go ahead and start labeling the adjacent streets. So right here, I'll use the align command and select 2 corners, and then scale it based on those 2 corners. And then I'll just adjust just a little bit, make this a little bit bigger so that it's on the border, and then I'll just trim any excess line work that we don't need. Then I'll send all the parcel line work to the back, and then this is just me grabbing the street names and throwing that into the key map, as well as adding the text for the project site. And then also what I'm going to do is add the hatched line work of our project limits to the key map, and this xref will be xrefed on all the applicable sheets without us having to redo anything. So just go here, create the line work, and extend it to our project limits. All right, then I'm also going to go back to this project map, adjust the hatch square so that our project site is showing the location of our project. All right, so the next drawing we're going to be working in is the note sheet drawing. So when we get into this drawing, you'll notice that when you click on the notes, that it's a block with a drop down similar to the utility agency list. We'll go ahead and choose City of Henderson because that's the agency for the community ambulance project. I'll also go to the right hand side and bring over the viewports that are associated with the City of Henderson. I'll move that orthogonally. Then I'll also bring in the title block like we do on all of our sheets. And you'll notice that at the bottom left corner there's the call before you dig block. I'll just go ahead and freeze that. Then I'll go into the model space and bring in the XR Sheets drawing. That way this viewport here on C 1.01 populates with the City of Henderson approval block. On C 1.02, I'll do the same thing with bringing in the XR title block. This will just contain our abbreviation list, our legend, as well as the quantity estimate table. So all I need to do is just bring in the title block. I leave this blank so that just in case we need more space for any more notes. So moving on, we'll get started with the setting up of the grading plan. So right now I'm deleting all the viewports associated with the other agencies, and then I'm going to move the viewports for the City of Henderson to the left side so that it's on our sheet. Then I'll get rid of the guidelines. Same thing, bring in the XR title block and the key map that has already been set up. And we'll also want to go back into the model space after I bring in this. So delete the XR, like the def points text, that kind of guide as to what XREFs need to be brought in. Let's see. I'll go to the model space, and this time I'm not only just going to bring in the XR sheet notes, but I'm also going to bring in the boundary, civil, construction notes, topo, and the utility drawings. 0, 0. All right. So what I'll also do is I'll copy paste kind of our typical labeling and construction notes, and then I'll paste clip, bring them closer so that I can use them for labeling. From here, I'll go ahead and use those texts I just copied over and start labeling streets. Get rid of these texts. Also, I'm gonna use the viewport to get to our site and then set the scale like that, like so. and I'll bring that into the sheet set, rename that, and I'll update our scale. So I'll fast forward through this part just because this is me labeling existing information. So street names, the right-of-way widths, and the document numbers, as well as the APNs of each adjacent parcel, as well as our parcel. This information we get from the survey, or if we don't have that, we can just grab it off of Gizmo. And then we'll just make sure that any document numbers that need to be added and make sure that the parcel numbers are correct. So once I've got that, I'll also take the existing multi-leader style that we have, and I'll also start labeling the existing topo inverts and rims for storm drain. I like to throw the background mask on so that it's easier to read any labeling. As you can see in the red, those are the survey texts. I like to leave those alone so that I'm not changing any of the survey elevations, and then also that allows me to just quickly reference them. I like to go ahead and freeze them in the viewports of the sheet drawings themselves, but keep them in the model space so that I can just double check very quickly to make sure that I'm calling out the right inverts. Alright, and now I'll just adjust our viewport tad bit. I froze the Viano layers, and now I'm going to bring in the existing ground surface and start labeling the contours. So I'll fast forward through this part. I like to use the major, minor contour labels for multiple. That way I can just draw a line that zigzags and labels all the contours. And then once I have done all the contour labeling, I'll slow it down once I get all those labeled. I'll select similar, go to the properties, and then I'll go to display contour label line, just go to false, and then I'll have all my contours labeled. Then this is just some last APN cleanup, just making sure that all the parcels that I'm showing that are adjacent to our site are labeled correctly with the right document numbers. So I like to have Gizmo open just to make sure I label them correctly. Setting up the sheets this way allows us to get all of our background, labeling, and everything in place, viewports in place, so that when we do get the notice to proceed to actually start designing, our background's already set up. The notes that the agencies want to see are already added, and then we're just designing from there. So that was sheet setup.